to the PR Wind Down podcast, the show for public relations professionals who are ready to see real change in the PR industry. We are your hosts, April Margulies and Laura Schooler. Let's get ready to wind down.
Happy holidays from the PR Wind Down team.
We're winding down from 2021 by unwrapping the best horror stories from the past year.
So whether you're driving home from a family's house, warming up with a fire, or thinking through your resolutions for the new year, we are super happy to have you join in the celebration.
So pour some nog and kick back and relax as we visit some tales of holiday horror to keep your spirits bright and start off 2022 the right way.
Let's get ready to wind down. Okay, ready for horror story number 1, Laura?
It looks like this one is from episode 41.
It is 41, geez.
There is nothing scarier than the back-to-back movies that I watched last night.
Wait, what did you watch last night?
One was Rosemary's Baby. Have you ever seen it?
No.
So good. Oh my God.
No, I'm not
So
watching
good.
that. I don't watch scary things.
Okay. Well, then you've never watched what I'm about to say, because every time I even watch 10 minutes of it, I have to sleep with the lights on for a week. The Exorcist.
Wait, why did you watch this back to
Woo! They were on TV. Do not open until podcasts. Okay. In my last position, I worked for a Silicon Valley PR firm that specializes in VC clients. That's venture capital clients. We had a unique client on our roster at the time, a local VC expert who was easy to pitch as a female woman of color and an industry leader. She always had her hands in a million different priorities and seemed to be bouncing between funds and projects frequently. One moment she said she was about to take a job as the CEO of an exciting startup, and the next she was launching a pitch competition for a fund we had no idea about. Normally, this wasn't an issue for our team, as we were mostly focused on thought leadership activities for her at the time. We were typically able to pivot quickly based on her shifts in focus until one day it was a big issue.
Oh, God.
We landed her an amazing broadcast interview on Bloomberg, which she had to do remotely from her office during the 2020 pandemic for obvious reasons. Lots of preparation went into this, and we made sure she knew exactly how to dial in and what to talk about. We gave her all of her talking points in advance and even walked her through them on a separate call. You know how it goes, the works. When Bloomberg asked her what fund she was with, moments before the segment started, she did not say what we expected her to say. We had advised her to mention the fund that she's inextricably tied to across the internet. Let's call this Fund A for the purposes of this story. Instead, she gave the name of a fund that, until that moment of time, was a secret and never to be shared with the press. Hereafter referred to as Fund B. What? The producer scrambled and changed all of the tickers and graphics to reflect the name of Fund B, which was misspelled throughout the entire segment. Frankly, how could it not be? This was all new information to everyone. The on-air talent proceeded to ask her questions about the statistics they had found online about Fund A prior to the segment, which were irrelevant to the conversation about Fund B. Although our client never corrected the mistake. Wait, what? At the end of the segment, Fund B was misspelled throughout, and the conversation they had about Fund A statistics was irrelevant to Fund B. So basically, the whole thing was wrong. I wonder if this was live. She sent us an email afterward requesting they keep her affiliation as Fund B and insert a list of new statistics to support that one instead, but it was too late. We had already requested they keep the name of Fund A, given there was no credible source online to link her publicly to Fund B. I mean, never mind that all of the statistics they talk about were linked to Fund A, right?
Well, right. So the whole conversation,
was about a different company. That was okay. Okay. I'm sorry. That was my take. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's my question. What do you do when a client is that much of a loose cannon and can't be trusted to even stick to a company name during interviews? I've moved on from that role, but I do not want to be in that situation again. Total nightmare. Wow.
I have to say, that was one of your better dramatic readings.
Yeah, I felt like I was reading for a role.
You would have won the role.
I would have gotten that role.
Yeah, I would have cast you.
Thank you. So I don't know if this was live or not, but it hardly matters because they did the whole interview. It's not like a phone interview where a PR person can be on the line and be like, whoa, wait a second, hold up, no, or can we reschedule this or whatever. It was a video segment, so it's just the media and the clients. And there's no PR people involved until after the fact. And then all you can do after the fact is, I mean, and that I was going to see, some of things get misspelled or data and you could try to correct it, but this whole thing was upside down and inside out and backwards. I mean, you just try to kill it almost, right? Like kill it. I would have called the producer afterwards and been like, I'm sorry, like we had no idea that was going to go down. We didn't even know about that, entity that came out of nowhere. And it actually is all now incorrect and it's not your fault and it's not our fault. And I think we should kill it.
So is it better to kill it or just leave it up there being a little bit off or all the way off? I guess you have
I guess it depends on the client,
Yeah.
I mean, if this was some, big, huge company, like I don't know, mentioned McKinsey before, but there's no way in the world that it would have happened if it was McKinsey because they know who they effing work for.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's like an unknown-ish entrepreneur, maybe it doesn't matter as much, but still, if somebody does the Googling later of this person's name and all of this information, because, oh my God, this person was on Cheddar, let's watch. And then it makes no sense. I mean, I'd almost be afraid that this client could get sued maybe, you know what I mean? Like, because I think you try to kill it.
Well, right, because what if Fund A finds out about Fund B for the first time? Or what if Fund B finds out that she or he or whatever, they said it was she, found out that like she was with a new fund?
Well, and also if Fund B sees their name, although it was misspelled, so they'd probably be like, oh, that's not us. Right? But if Fund B figures out that it's supposed to be them with some other company's data, then they might end up calling Bloomberg and being like, what the hell, this isn't us. The possibility for explosion after explosion after explosion, like it just can keep going on.
Right.
Oh my God. That's a new one, man.
So what do you do as the person on the account? Question one. What do you do as the senior person on the account? And what do you do as the agency owner of that account?
I don't know how much they pay. I don't know what the strategy where they sit inside of the agency. Maybe there's somebody's, best friend, who knows, but.
Right, cousin or.
Right, all of that, like forget all of that, right? I think that you need to think seriously about resigning the account because that kind of stuff, now the person on the account or the person who got the media opportunity looks horrible to Bloomberg.
Yeah, which is bad. So then you have to weigh, is your relationship with Bloomberg or the relationship with the client more important?
Well, right. And so again, it depends on the client, I suppose. If it's some super important high level paying $1 million, a year client, but that client probably doesn't do what happened here. Right?
It seems like a telltale sign of somebody that
is not ready for prime time.
Right.
So I think it's probably not a high paying client or a high brand name person or company that you would need to resign the account because it is so not worth. And then the account person is in their rights to sort of throw the client under the bus and be like, oh my God, I'm mortified. I hope that doesn't reflect badly on me. We had no idea that was going to go down. We've done other interviews with this client and they've gone great. And We don't know if she was nervous or something's going on behind the scenes that she didn't tell us about. But if there's anything we can do to make it up to you, please let me know. And,
yeah,
I beg your forgiveness.
Right.
God, I feel so bad for whoever pitched that.
Sucks.
So and I don't know, again, I don't know the story, so who knows, but it goes back. You have to vet the living crap out of your clients, I guess.
Yeah, and maybe doing mock interviews. I mean, although how do you see that coming? That
Right.
They're just going to switch a company name during an interview. I mean, there's no way to see that coming.
No.
But maybe you need to be more selective with clients if that.
I mean, I'm really grasping at straws when I say that. I'm just trying to figure out where in the universe is there a learning here, and there's nothing you could have done in the moment there. So when you go back a few steps.
But if your agency owner doesn't resign the account, then you absolutely can never put that person in a live interview context ever again.
Right.
Maybe not even, right? Maybe no interviews, maybe only bylines. Where you can
or like written Q&As or written answers, where you can
that's your only
you can edit it
and make sure that it sounds right.
And then if like that goes okay, maybe like a year later you can put them on the phone with like print or .com media outlets where you're on the phone, and if the client starts going off the rails, you can cut them off.
I think you'd have that's the only way to go.
But hopefully by then they would have learned. See, that's the thing with learning. You wouldn't have learned anything in a different scenario because it wouldn't have happened in a different scenario. It had to be the live broadcast to show you this client's true colors. So you could not have anticipated it. And I'm not blaming anybody. It's one of those things like, oh my God, how do you avoid that from happening? And maybe you can't. So that was the only reason I could have come up with the like vetting the living night and day out of.
What does that look like? Because if they're paying their bills, you can vet their financials before you take them on to make sure that they don't have any bankruptcy issues.
I know.
Or
it's so hard.
But
some people would say, "Well, call to find out if they had a PR firm before and call them," but that doesn't happen in PR. Make them give you personal references, but everybody always gives their best personal references. It's so hard. It's the risk of working with human beings, but also the risk of working with entrepreneurs, startups, a little less
reliable,
learned, and less risk averse, and have fewer parameters. Like my many years at PwC, there was a list of rules that you had to follow. Like if you're just an entrepreneur, your rules are you make them up as you go along, and that's how you get ahead as an entrepreneur. But when it comes to involving other parties, you can't just fly by the seat of your pants, which is why we do media training, which is why we give briefing documents in advance. But there's only so much you can do. Again, that's why I think maybe there's something going on behind the scenes that the team didn't know about, and this client wasn't savvy enough to tell. They should have told the PR firm, well, I'm thinking about actually saying I'm with this company, not that company, and then they could have discussed it ahead of time. I don't know why.
Can you imagine finding out afterwards that happened?
Oh God, it makes me sick. That's why people in PR like stress, man.
Okay.
All right.
I think that's a good note to end on.
That was great. What do we have next?
This one's from episode 46. Whoever finds it fastest reads it. Got it.
I can't even find my email.
Okay. All right. Do not open until podcast. Hi, April and Laura. This is a current horror story for me, and I hope you can help me navigate things before it gets worse. Oh my. I'm an AE, and I have been at the same agency for about 2 years, so most of my career. And recently, they did a pretty big round of layoffs for financial reasons, and I was one of the surviving account executives. I'm relieved to have kept my job, but things have been tough with staffing. I am working loads of overtime hours with no end in sight, and I feel a little bit out of my element in terms of my expertise. I'm fielding a lot of high-level client questions without much senior guidance, and I really don't think they'll be hiring anyone new anytime soon. I would hate to jump ship and look for a new job. I like my team, but I'm having a tough time with work boundaries, and I'm worried I don't have enough experience to meet my clients' expectations without very much management support. I normally consider myself to be proactive and a go-getter, but I feel kind of like a kid wearing their dad's suit because the work I'm doing right now is pretty far out of my experience level. What should I do? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Should I quit before I make a major mistake and get fired anyway, or try to stick it out? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Lots of question marks. 2 questions.
Well,
6
it sort of
question
plays
marks.
into everything we've been talking about. So
It
that's
does.
interesting.
That is interesting.
Well, what do you think?
I think it's not this person's responsibility to be more senior than they are. And I wouldn't quit a job because somebody's putting you in a position that's
Above
over your head.
Mm-hmm.
That's the responsibility of the business owner, of the management team, of the senior leaders, right? If that's what they do and you mess something up, that's on them, right? So they can blame you for it, and they may, but you cannot take that personally regardless, because you
Mm-hmm.
have to know at the end of the day that they were just leaning on you too much and it was unfair. So first of all, I would not say quit because you're worried that you're going to make a mistake. That's not on you. That's on the people that put the team together, or
Right.
didn't put the team together in this case. I think you're not going to get fired. The likelihood, if you do a good job, that you're going to endear yourself to the agency and eventually get promoted is probably very high. So it is a kind of a high risk, high reward situation. If you are working so many hours that you're starting to burn out, then I think you might need to work on setting better boundaries and just say, hey, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm afraid I'm going to make mistakes. And maybe even come to the table with some ideas. What if I offloaded this account? Or could we get me help here so I can focus here? Could we get me an AC that can come underneath me and help me with some stuff? Because this is a lot to juggle.
There's no other senior mentorship or something that this person could tap into or request?
I mean, they say without very much management support. So it does look like kind of just being left in the deep end to swim.
Really think that this person needs to go to whoever the more senior people are. If they're too afraid to go to the owner or the CEO of this, I don't know how big the firm is, but the people who are more senior than anybody they feel they have some kind of relationship, and ask them to help figure this out ahead of time.
Right.
I think they got to get ahead of it, because you cannot be expected to do work that you don't really, as we talked about before, know how to do. You need to have somebody directing the ship, or of course it's going to be a huge flop and you're going to feel terrible, even though it's not your fault. Or you'll be up all night doing work for 10 hours that could take somebody who knows what they're doing 30 minutes to do, right? If the only person that really is senior to you that you can go to is the owner or the CEO, go to them. You have to. Don't be afraid to go to them. You have to. You have to be like, look, tell them what you do know how to do and what you are excited to do, but that you really feel that you need some experienced mentorship or leadership or something to help you to make sure that this runs smoothly and nothing falls through the cracks. Right?
I think so.
I mean, you've been there. You've talked about it before, being given ridiculous responsibility, and like, how horrible was it? It was horrible.
I like being in the deep end. So for me, it was always thrilling, but
you've admitted that it was crazy, right?
It was crazy. And the problem with that is that if you're trying to teach yourself to do something above you and you don't have someone else, don't know that you don't really know how to do it.
Right. You don't even know.
You can convince yourself that you know how to do it. And then the same problem happens we just talked about, where you get over promoted or have an overinflated idea of what you can do.
Right.
Get put into a situation to match that level of what you think you can do. And then turns out you can't.
Right.
Not really.
You're not really learning.
Not really.
You're just making it up as you go along, even though you might be wrong.
So there's something to be said for both. Like, I think it's good to be a go-getter that throws yourself
but there are things you just won't know. I mean, I wonder if even, let's say your company, they're like, nope, good luck, do it for yourself, kid. So we're trying to convince you not to quit, I guess is the point. You could go into a group on Facebook, LinkedIn, Slack, whatever, and say, hey, is somebody senior out there?
Go get a mentor.
You're right. Versed in this industry or in this type of launch or whatever, and can you help me a little bit, give me some pointers and directors? I've just gotten sort of thrown in the deep end of the pool and nobody in my company will help. and I don't want to fail or quit.
That's good advice.
You might be able to find somebody totally outside to really help direct you. And then you will owe that person your life.
And so many of us have been in that situation. So we would be very empathetic if somebody hit us up. Hey, I'm really impressed with you. Can you be my mentor? Right? Like, I don't think Jen McManus, who we had on, or Laura, or myself, or anybody that I know that at this senior level hasn't had an experience like that and wouldn't be like, yeah, 100%. What can I do to help? I have an hour on Tuesday, you know?
So April, did you just volunteer?
I guess I did.
You're a mental mentor.
I'm a big softie. That's what I am.
All right, so whoever wrote this,
don't quit.
Call April. Her
Call
number
me.
is 8675-309.
That's not a full number, so it's a lie. You can email me.
666-8675-309.
That's not my number either. It's not my number. She's lying to you.
Do you know that? Do you know what number that is that I just gave?
No, it's probably from a song though.
You're so smart. Remember, do you know that song? 8675309.
Yes.
That's it.
That's so funny.
You go to one of my Facebook pages, that's the number I put there, and somebody was like, I kept calling you and it wasn't going through.
Oh my God. These next two are from episode 50, our back-to-back Halloween special.
That was a good one.
It was.
Scary story number 1. Hey, PR wind down goddesses.
Ooh.
One of my best friends is someone I met at a former agency job. We just instantly clicked and were fast friends, as if we'd always known each other. Our close-knit friendship was deepened by the fact we sat across the hall from each other, and all of our work was intrinsically interdependent, and we went through the same trials and tribulations and fires. The two of us were thick as thieves. We'd often go to lunch together or go get coffee together, and we were usually inwardly or outwardly giggling about some inside joke or scenario in lockstep. Although we were both straight girls, we started to be seen as a couple by our boss, and we sometimes even joked about being work wives. This all became super awkward one day when we were in a meeting with a prospect, and our boss introduced us as a couple. Oh my God. And correcting him would have made things even more awkward. It didn't help that I had a stereotypically butch haircut at the time either. It was the first time, but not the only time he'd do this. On another occasion, he even joked to a client that I was a dominatrix. This particular incident was made even more awkward by the fact that he left the meeting abruptly and very early, as usual, leaving us there to bask alone in the uncomfortable situation he's just created. For the rest of the meeting, I wondered whether he really believed that or just fantasized it was true, which made me even more uncomfortable as the meeting went on. Given that it was all in good fun and seemed like such a minor incident, I didn't report anything to HR. After listening to the podcast, I'm sure at least Laura would agree this was a good move. But what should you do in a situation like this if it makes you truly uncomfortable? All right, well, I gotta say, when I talk about not going to HR, it's not about issues like this. This is actually kind of thing you should go to HR. When I say don't go to HR, it's about like your own personal job or your salary or how your boss is treating you, but not when it comes to weird sexual harassment type issues, you know? And I don't know where this falls. It's not sexual harassment, but it is inappropriate for the workplace. If it was even a man or a woman, a straight couple, why are you introducing your client as like, this is a couple? And the fact is, I feel like this guy, I'm assuming was a male boss, right, would not have introduced them as a couple if they had been a heterosexual couple. And so that makes it even more awkward and weird. The reason why he was doing it was because he thought or hoped that they were lesbians. I think that when you're young and maybe even when you're old, it's hard to confront, but like the boss should be confronted. Like, what, dude, what are you talking about? And why are you doing that in front of a client? Like, we're not a couple. we're friends and we work together. And even if we were a couple, that's not your business or the client's business, and it's irrelevant.
Right.
So I think that's what.
So is this the only horror story where you said go to HR?
No, I think I've said go to HR about, harassment type claims. When I say they're useless is when I'm talking, like I said, about your job because your boss wants to fire you. That ship has already sailed. Or your salary isn't high enough. Like HR ain't going to help you.
Right.
But with this kind of stuff, they actually have to help you because it's probably
illegal liability.
Yeah, that's my jam on this one.
Yeah. I mean, if you imagine being in that situation and that's happening,
right,
you can only imagine that must be the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
So it does beg the question of whether or not that's a battle you want to fight. So if it's one of those things you can kind of laugh off, then maybe leave it alone. But if it really does truly, as the question was posed, make you truly uncomfortable, then yeah, I think Laura's right. You just gotta take it to HR, assuming that this is the worst incident. I mean, given that if that's happening, what else is happening? But if it is, then it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was what a way to kick off Halloween. Okay. Should we move on to horror story number 2?
Certainly.
Okay. I will do the honors of this one. Okay. Scary story number 2. It was a day, just like any other day, and I secured a bylined article opportunity for a client. It was all normal. The editor at this little trade pub reviewed my initial pitch and abstract. He said my pitch was great, but not a fit, and that he considered some alternatives. Took some heavy brainstorming, but I worked with my manager to craft 3 alternative angles, each complete with thorough abstracts for consideration. After some back and forth, the editor selected one of the articles and gave me a list of writing guidelines and a deadline. 2 days before the deadline, I submitted the client's completed, reviewed, and approved draft. No answer. 3 days. Then, the editor replied to me with this scary email saying the draft was terrible and I should never submit something so awful to a serious publication. I was shocked. The byline was the same quality of others I'd worked on for that client, and we followed the approved abstract to a T. I checked, and all of the length and the technical requirements were fine too. I replied asking for specific feedback and saying I'd be happy to have the draft updated so it would meet the editorial standards. Silence. I followed up a few days later, offering to get on the phone and discuss revisions. We'd worked hard on the draft, 2,000 words, and I wanted to salvage it. This time, I got a message blocked by sender notice. Yikes. What did I do wrong? Okay, so this is horrifying, truly.
Oh, this is scary.
It is scary. It actually is scary. So my initial question would be to this person, or if it were me in this situation, which thank God it was not. Sorry to this person if that was them. I would want to see if I actually attached the right draft. Did I accidentally send them the wrong version?
That's interesting.
And I didn't realize I attached the wrong thing. That would be my first assumption, was that I attached the wrong thing, knowing that it's the same quality as every other byline that I've written or overseen written and submitted.
That's really interesting that you totally sent the wrong version or something different entirely. Who knows? All right. I like that. I mean,
I imagine this person checked, but so let's pretend they checked and it was the right version.
It's hard to say because I don't know what the topic was, what the publication is. You know what I mean? So
well, they said tiny.
Oh, right. I was thinking is this the Harvard Business Review or something?
No, it's like a little trade publication where they're usually not very particular.
And the fact that they liked the initial
idea
pitch. So it was the pitch was great, it says. So obviously that was not written crazy. And then the editor said it was terrible and I should never submit something so awful to a serious publication. God,
I don't know what else you could just,
dumbfounded.
I mean, it could be somebody that's like got a mental disorder of some kind or a mood disorder, and it's like just hit them at the wrong time at the wrong day,
and this editor blocked them. I mean,
that's extreme. Honestly, there's not really anything you can do other than try to find another editor at that publication and just say, hey, I'm so sorry, I don't know what we did wrong, but I'd love to know, as a learning for next time, we really want to have a partnership with your publication and this client, it means a lot to them. Is there anything I can do? I mean, I think that's
I think that you have to go
option.
to another person at that publication.
It's the only option.
Maybe I don't know what the trade is. I don't know what the topic was, but maybe there was something that offended the person who was reading.
That's what I'm wondering.
Some reason. I'm not accusing anybody. People get offended over the craziest things these days. So that's the only other thing I could think of.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because
I'm just taking this person at their word that it was like, a normal, solid article.
Yeah.
And why you would get treated like you wrote something on like the toilet paper and, threw it at them at their head or something. It's just bizarre.
Unless there's some industry specific detail that you overlooked, like some fundamentally wrong thing that you didn't realize was wrong and the client didn't either, that editor, because of their specific knowledge of construction or logistics or electronics or like HR, if there was some thing in the article that showed a lack of understanding of some industry specific detail that was offensive. That's the only other guess I have. But if you discovered that you sent the wrong article, that would have been good to include in note number 2 before you got blocked.
Right. I think one was like, here's a pitch. They said, it's great, but not really for us. Then they redid it and sent it. So that was number 2 was when they got like screamed at. And then they wrote back again to say, well, can we discuss it? And I guess that was when they realized they had been blocked. So yeah, it sounds like they were blocked after like getting yelled at after number 2.
Okay, so then it wouldn't have worked anyway. But if you discovered you sent the wrong version, then I think you have to go to another editor. That's a bummer.
That's scary. It's good for Halloween though. Ready for the last one?
You bet. This story is from episode 47.
Okay. Hi, April and Laura. A few years ago, I was working at a mid-sized firm at a mid-management level. My higher-ups were big on appearances, and a lot of stock was put into how the client perceived us in terms of optics. We had one particularly tough client that had a massive contract and explained to us repeatedly that they were top earners in their sector with, quote, secrets that would blow up the news cycle if they ever got out. It was all very cryptic, and despite our NDA, they never did disclose those secrets to us. I thought it seemed shady, but my CEO insisted we needed to impress these very important people. Anyway, a few months passed and the client stopped paying us, claiming to be dissatisfied with our campaign. We'd been turning out a lot of trade placements, but the client wanted top tier. My supervisors made it pretty clear that we needed to win the client over again and pressured us to answer calls and emails at all hours of the morning and evening to the point where we were heavily over servicing. I'm dying to hear what happens here, aren't you? Eventually, we got an in-person meeting on the books. My AM was supposed to lead it, I guess account manager.
Yep.
But the morning of the meeting, she got sick and couldn't come in. I was feeling pretty terrible myself, but I knew we'd likely lose the account if we canceled. I didn't want to risk losing our biggest account and possibly my job as a result. So I went in anyway. I got to the client's office with 2 AEs in tow. Account executives, I assume.
Yes. Yes.
And then I politely excused myself from the conference room where we were waiting to get sick in the restroom. Then I rallied, returned, and gave a flawless presentation. I had saved the account.
Oh my God.
2 days later, HR calls me in. In not so gentle terms, she reprimanded me for going to the meeting. Apparently, someone on the client side had heard my restroom moment and called my CEO.
What?
They fired us for, quote, risking the welfare of their staff.
Come on.
And I got a major talking to from my boss. I wasn't fired right then, but I didn't survive the round of layoffs that followed. I felt pretty damned if you do, damned if you don't. What should I have done? Oh my God.
That's terrible.
That is a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I've definitely done something similar. Not quite that bad, but like pulled through for some important meeting and tried to pretend the whole time I was presenting that my throat wasn't prickly and, you know, the sinuses or what, like some terrible cold. I haven't really thrown up, but I've definitely been way too sick to be at work and been at work.
It wasn't me, but somebody I worked with was supposed to go to like some trade show or maybe a client meeting out of town, and literally got in the car, went to the airport. I mean, this is going back like to the late 90s. And when she got to the airport, she realized like there was just no way she could get on an airplane. Like she was super sick. So she bailed, and she got in so much trouble with the senior people at the agency. I don't think people would do that now after what's been going on in the world.
No.
It used to be you went to work no matter how deathly ill you were. Now it's the opposite. If you go to work and you're sick, you're going to get in more trouble than if you didn't go. The tables have totally turned with the generation, et cetera.
I am so pleased by that.
I know. Now, I guess it's because people think that you're lying, that you're not really sick, and so you can use it as an excuse, which I suppose you can, and I'm sure people have forever. But bottom line is, you know, if your employee is lying about being sick and is sick all the time, and then their work is terrible, well, that's grounds for dismissal. But if somebody gets sick once in a while, like that's just like
fire somebody
life.
For getting sick too much, can you?
So here's what I was just thinking, and I wouldn't have come up with it myself. I don't know if this is a she, but if it was, she should have told them that she was pregnant.
I mean,
and then if they're like, well, where's the baby? You'd be like, well, now that you brought it up, you're bringing up something very painful, and I miscarried.
Oh God.
Never in a million years would I have come up with that or done it, but now that I'm here, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, no, I'm embarrassed to say I had the same thought.
Because this person is right. Obviously, like that if they said they were sick and didn't go, they would have gotten in trouble. And they went and they got in trouble. They couldn't win. And what would somebody say?
They can't say anything.
I didn't get everybody else pregnant. You can't catch pregnant.
I mean, if the client got sick, though, then it would be like,
well,
got it somewhere else. I was pregnant.
They just said risking the welfare.
It's very presumptuous, unless the person otherwise looked very sick.
Right, but
you could look very sick from being pregnant.
Right. So that's my advice to people if that ever happened. But I don't think I don't know when this happens. This sounds like it's not too long ago, probably. I don't know why I say that, but the world has changed.
Right. I think it's a wrap on that. Thank you for tuning in for the PR Wind Down podcast, the holiday special.
If you want to share some ghosts of PR jobs past, remember to submit your own agency stories and questions at the contact email in the show notes.
Cheers to the new year, and we can't wait to wind down with you again next time next year.